And welcome to the Toolbox Podcast. This is a new podcast we're putting up, Peter and I, and it's all about engineering, audiovisual, construction, do-it-yourself, and so many other things. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, boys.
So, maybe introduce yourself, then I introduce myself, and we take it from there.
Peter Kaganda is my name, EPC contractor.
Okay? How did it come that for you wanted to do a podcast? Tell us about it.
It's a long story. For a long time, I've not been satisfied with the construction products, the engineering product that are being delivered. And I discovered that the ultimate strategy in terms of what we call consumer protection is an educated consumer. An educated consumer is an empowered consumer. If the consumer is powered, is educated, is powered. If the consumer is empowered, that means if he wants anything, any construction product, any engineering product, he knows what he wants because he's educated and can go and get it. That's the most important thing. The challenge we have been having is there are cases, especially for public works. You can hire a consultant, the entire team, the entire professional team, but still works fail to meet the specifications. Private sector too. But if the customer is educated, he or she is empowered. When the customer is empowered, is the ultimate protection for the consumer. Laws are very good, regulations and policies are very good, but the pinnacle of protection, in my opinion, is an educated consumer who consumes our product, our construction and engineering deliverables. So if the consumer is empowered, that means he or she will look for what he needs and be able to get it anywhere. Yeah.
Very interesting, yeah. It's been my concept as well ever since I've come to Uganda. Now almost 25 years. So I came for various reasons, but one of them, I was in the IT.
Yep.
And in the IT, my job as an IT manager was to basically translate to a common language to the management of the companies I was consulting to. What is the solution, and understand the things, because people just don't understand.
True.
People don't know. And 15, 20 years later into the AV industry, to the audiovisual, again, people don't have a clue. So the customers, the end users are just not educated. They don't have a clue what they're getting. And the technocrats, they think they know, but they also don't know. And so especially in government, but not only government, you have the procurement officers, the administrations, they follow what the admin says. And they follow what the technocrat says. And the technocrats, they only Google. All they know is Google. They follow Mother Google. So you get a lot of times that projects, the BOQs, made from Google, and it's not a working solution.
True.
So people buy, and then it's not the right solution. And it's not a working solution. And then they need to buy again. Or sometimes they'll publish a tender and nobody will bid because it's not a working solution.
Absolutely.
So, and people don't know who to talk to and who to ask and what to go about it. And some of them are just proud. They don't want to ask. They think this was done, and if I'll ask, it will look as if I'm not professional. But I always tell my people, even I don't know everything.
True.
Somebody once told me, you learn all your life, you still die stupid.
From what I say is I'm a lifetime student.
Yes. So what do we talk about today?
So what is interesting is there's a previous headline in New Vision, that is last week. Remember last week we were discussing about poor quality of work.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, one time you were telling me, that why is it that Ugandans, they don't insist on verticality of things? You brought in invisible terms like levels of the floors, verticality of the doors. And luckily, just last week, there's a headline, building permits, districts probed over corruption. This is the National Daily, New Vision.
Mm.
Building permits, districts probed over corruption. So, what is causing non-conforming works? I want to broaden it a little bit, not just saying maybe the door is not vertical, but it's broad. What is causing the delivery of non-conforming works? You just hit it on it. You hinted on it when you said BOQs are made from Google and they procure equipment. It doesn't work. So we have a lot of non-conforming works, non-conforming materials, non-conforming deliverables in the engineering sector as an engineering product or a construction product. So what is the real cause of all these non-conformances? So it's broad. But as we said from the beginning, from the real inception of this podcast, is educating the consumer so that they're empowered. One of the key, what is very rampant, we may not just take them in order. Let us start from corruption, as the National Daily has stipulated it. Corruption. This is, it has grossly affected not only in Uganda, most of Africa, but even world at large. But in Uganda, it's so rampant because, okay, this is our case study for now. In Uganda, let me cite this. This is a New Vision of Thursday, June 27, 2024. This paragraph reads, quote, "We have received complaints from many house buyers, including the diaspora community, of poor quality houses by developers, especially by foreign investors. We are investigating how this can happen when there are many levels of government regulators, especially in local government." So to talk about regulators, the best way to prevent against shoddy work or non-conforming works is a well-informed consumer. Again, it continues, quote, "Are there architecture plans, wiring or plumbing? How did they authorize occupation permits of such poor standard houses, among others?" Let me talk about corruption here a little bit. How did they authorize occupation permits of such poor standard houses, among others, end quote. In Uganda, there is a headline, I don't know if I can pull it off. There was an investigation conducted by BBC and revealed that in Uganda you can get HIV negative test results for sale. In Uganda, I don't know if I can pull it off.
No, I will.
So if you
I'll
can
put it on the screen.
if you can get HIV negative test results, what is an occupation permit? It's nothing. So that's corruption. It continued to say, Stephen Ikasirie, the IG's manager of information, and IG's means Inspector General, IG's manager of information and internal inspection of staff, said they have been receiving complaints from homeowners of condominiums. I think we should have a full episode on condominiums. From homeowners of condominiums and other properties concerning the poor quality of products and defects seen soon after occupation, wondering whether the district officials who sit on the building committees were not being compromised. So what I usually tell people is the moment you see non-conforming works, there are three things that I draw. One is corruption is highlighted here. Greed, I'll separate later, greed and corruption, but it is corruption, greed, and incompetence. So the corruption aspect,
But I will actually start with the incompetence.
the
Because the
incompetence.
incompetence brings the corruption. Because people not knowing, not having capacity, that brings the problem. If people would know, if people would understand
True.
deeply, not just by the way, but if people will really understand how business works, how things are done, you see, even corruption. By the way, corruption is not only in Uganda,
Yeah.
it's everywhere in the world.
Where?
But the problem, as you said, point number 2 is greediness. Corruption is okay. Actually, in many places you call it commission, not corruption. So to get some commission for a job you're doing, consultation, that's okay, it's fair enough. But once you start being greedy, there are many jokes about it, I don't remember all of them, but basically from so much greediness, when you ask for so much money, there'll be no money remaining to do the actual job to the level it needs to be. And it's a combination of all the three, but incompetence is number 1. And the incompetence, as we said in the beginning of the podcast, is leading from uneducative knowledge, uneducative decisions. People don't understand what they're buying, what they're getting. Unfortunately, some trust professional people, and the professional people as a crook. But if people will really take the time to educate themselves, to consult, to ask, not be ashamed to ask. This is a big problem in Uganda, actually. People don't like to ask, and when you're asked, they don't like to answer. No, you don't understand, you do this and that. So I think this educative part with incompetence, and the incompetence goes together with education, is very key for us to help people in Uganda, but not just in Uganda, everywhere, how to make an informed decision. Because in the end of the day, Mother Google, and today it's not only Mother Google, now people trust AI. They go to AI, they think they'll get the right. No. And some people don't go to architect. I once went with a minister. He built a hotel up country. And he thought he will save money for himself. He will get small builders, foremen, plumbers. He got architect, he got interior designer, he got all the small people. He built a hotel that way. When he opened it, in the end of the day, he said, if I would have taken Rocco, it would have been cheaper and less headache. It was just hypothetical example, not necessarily Rocco, but if I would have taken a construction company, a professional company, less headache, I would have finished much before, and it would have cost me less. But I thought I'm saving money for myself. So just people don't know what they're doing.
That's very true. And if you look at it, there's something I want to open here. There's something you've cited. This is the building. This is the statutory instrument. This is Uganda. This is a building control regulation 2020, statutory instrument number 3. It is abundant. It is clear. It is. Let me recite this properly. Number 5, professional engagement. That's part 3 of the control building operations. 5, engagement of professionals. 1, the building committee. Let me just go to the building committee shall, as a condition in the building permit, require the owner of a building other than for minor building works to 1, employ an architect for purposes of architecture design. B, employ an engineer for the purposes of an engineering design. C, employ a surveyor for the purposes of surveying services such as processing boundary reports. D, retain the services of the architect and the engineer for the purpose of supervising the construction of the building. E, retain a health and safety expert on site throughout the construction of the building. F, retain the services of any other professional necessary to a building operation. Now, there is you have hinted on the professionals. It is within the law and is clearly stipulated and strongly recommended. Engage professionals. Now, you see the challenge you're having today is, as we're going a little bit further, what is causing shoddy works? What is causing non-conforming works? Corruption is broad. Actually, there are a number of issues that I've talked about. Corruption, let me first illustrate the makeup of a building team. You have an employer, Boaz. You have this employer says, no, I'm going to hire professionals. I want the best. I'm going to hire professionals. They get professionals. Let me call it the project management team. Or let me call him or her the contract administrator. It can start from project inception or it can be at execution, whatever the case. So you have an employer, a contract administrator, you can call him a project manager, then the contractor. Corruption. The moment the contract administrator, project manager, consultant is wearing the same jersey as the contractor,
Problem starts.
And from inception, they tailor specifications with a lot of ambiguity. I can cite a very small example. A specification in the BOQ can be detailed as supply and fix a door 600, okay, let me say 900 by 2.1, 600 by 2100 millimeters. Full stop. You are opening the employer to the belly of the vulture. Not all contractors, but contractors are very, very, very ruthless. The moment you have specifications that are ambiguous, for them they're always looking for the lowest possible bid. The moment you say, I want a microphone, he will look for the cheapest microphone. The moment you say, I want a swivel chair, these things range, these products range. You can have a door, you can have a microphone ranging from $0.5 to hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So if you have ambiguous specifications, and this is done by professionals,
supposedly professionals.
actually these are professionals, but I just want to even differentiate between the two. There's what recently I was discussing with a friend. He was asking me, Peter, what's the difference between a mistake and incompetence?
Interesting.
And I was like, okay. It came out of just of head. Like, okay, a mistake. Many times, the person who has committed a mistake can realize the mistake even before someone else points at it. But in case it has slipped through the cracks and he has not noticed it, if he's made aware of the mistake, he says, yeah, it's true. That door, that hinge is not meant to be opening that way. This microphone, maybe the cord or the cable is not meant to be connected. This cable on the terminal, on the battery, is not meant to be terminated like this. That's a competent person who has made a mistake. An incompetent person will not even know that he has made a mistake. There's something you always tell me, that pastors from villages, he wants a big, big, big speaker. He doesn't know, he's taking it. They don't know that you don't necessarily need a big speaker. Those are not the specifications you look for. A guy is looking for a speaker 3 times Boaz's size, and they think that's the best speaker. So specifications sometimes with corrupt people. And this is, I have very many examples, and surprisingly, there's a project not far from here. A customer was frustrated, and the building is on sale.
Sadly.
Not far from here.
Very sadly.
Client took all the initiative to hire the elite team, an elite team But the customer was very, very disappointed. And the building is for sale.
And this is every day, everywhere in Uganda, but not only in Uganda, many places
So
you find it.
this one, you would say, okay, this is the private sector. We know so much, this crap happens so much in public works, but this is private sector. Someone invested the resources, wanted the best.
You see, the most common, you're talking about those. So somebody will get a carpenter or a constructor, and I think we spoke before the podcast of the use of a simple thing of a spirit level. People don't use the spirit level in this country much, unless you insist as a client. But even some clients don't know what is spirit level. So the client brought doors or windows from abroad, and they're straight. But the frame is another story. Now you need to work it out. It's a problem.
Sure.
So it's even to these basic small things that are the things straight, not straight. We're not going to electric, we're not going to microphone. Simple, door and a window. And in most houses that you rent or use in Uganda, there is no straightness. Things are not, so this is the substandard people are talking about.
Yeah, now when it comes to that, the good thing we have is we have what we call tolerances. We know the framers of most of what we call the building standards world over, they know we don't live in a perfect world. And that's why sometimes for us we have what we call the tolerance, the laboratory tolerance and the field tolerances. In the lab, it's close to ideal. In the field, it's not. So we have tolerances. Now, for example, you see this? This is a crack width measuring ruler. It does not necessarily mean that every crack is disastrous or dangerous, or it is indicating an imminent failure of a structure or a structure element. But the framers of the building standards world over, they know their tolerances. Some things don't come up with the way we anticipate them. But for an example, I'm giving an example of cracks. Cracks are predicted. We can predict the cracking, how the cracking behavior of a structure element. Now I'm talking about concrete, reinforced concrete. We can predict the cracking behavior. But the principle is we can never stop cracking of a concrete element. What we only do is we control the width of the cracking and sometimes the distribution of the cracks. And we do that by only doing three things. One is called, we call it providing for joints. You can call them expansion joints or call expansion joints. Another thing is we provide reinforcement. Then another is what we call pre-stressing. Pre-stressing, basically you compress the concrete so much you want to bridge girders, concrete girders. So basically the thing we use to control, I'm giving an example for cracking. The joints provide reinforcement for cracking. Let me explain this on this a little bit. You can do a design for a beam or a slab or a retaining wall. In your calculations, there's what we call crack width analysis. You analyze the crack. We predict how will it crack under service loads. The moment, let's say for BS, most of the time it's not allowed to go beyond 0.3 millimeters.
What is BS?
That's the British standards. Most of the Commonwealth countries, we just assimilate it. And when you go to Middle East and North America, it is American standards. So if it is 0.3 millimeters as the minimum, the maximum allowable, that means you have to control that crack below the minimum specified. But the beam can be okay, strength-wise, what we call ULS, ultimate limit state. But SLS, the serviceability limit state, is not if it's beyond 0.3 millimeters. So you provide additional reinforcement on top of the strength requirement, the reinforcement required for strength performance, you provide additional reinforcement to control the width of the cracks, not to take it away. So it's a game of trying to minimize, because you can even bring it lower depending on the customer's request. For example, if it's an aesthetic component, this is a very huge beam in front of a big reception of Marriott. Nobody's going to allow 0.3. Even 0. What I'm talking about is 0. You can't even see it unless you really go closer to the beam or that structure element. But it can be reduced to 0.2 or even 0.1. So that information is provided by the customer. As we said, an educated customer. So even the flatness, the spirit level, the verticality, their tolerances. If it's a column, it shouldn't deviate beyond this from the vertical. If it's
No, even in the spirit level, you don't need to be in the middle. You have a range.
Exactly. So there are tolerances in everything. So, but the challenge we usually have is, as we said, this one at first. The contract specifications have been tailored with a lot of ambiguity. That's intentionally. So that one, it's if someone is competent, what we call competence, for example, in Uganda and most of the international bodies, whether the US, Europe, to be registered, a registered professional, you must have fulfilled requirements for minimal competence. We call it minimal competence. So I assume you are competent. So the moment you are a registered professional, you are minimally competent. But the challenge comes in, I call it now professional negligence. These are two sisters, corruption and professional negligence. Corruption and professional negligence. It is very alarming. It's very, very alarming. Because if you look at many times these documents are drafted by these professionals with these ambiguities, intentionally knowing that they're not going to be able to enforce anything on the contractor. As I say, the moment the contract administrator is wearing a contractor's jersey, this is it.
But then the challenge for the end users, how can they identify
Exactly. No, that's what I'm going
a
to.
professional person to Joe Akali person?
Now, a professional. Now I'm going to even the professionals. I add on something called ethical. We try, and how people ask me many times, but I had professionals. Why is it I go to lousy work? To you, let me look even the cameras. I'm sorry. If you took the initiative to hire the professionals and you didn't get the best, I'm sorry. On behalf of the fraternity, I'm sorry. Not only in engineering or construction, but even in medicine.
All across.
Things happen.
In IT, in AV, it's
Exactly.
everywhere.
So, for the sake of I apologize for that. However, you try to go an extra step in identifying, yes, he's competent, he's a professional, but ethics. Is he ethical? How do you do that? You can do some due diligence, but on top of that, this is what I was taught by a gentleman called Donald Trump's called instinct, intuition 101. You can have 10 people you think you can employ to help you do the job. What is the instinct telling you? I usually tell people that you can do the math, the lab, everything is checking the box. But if the instinct is not, run for your life.
But I think the best thing, okay, not in all professionals, but check. Ask to see jobs that they've done. Go to meet clients that they've worked for. Check the reputation. Reputation is very key.
Call them testimonials. Ask for testimonials.
Yes. Not fake ones. Also there's corruption.
So that's what I'm telling you. In selection, we do this when you're hiring people. There is a famous quote by Warren Buffett. Says, if I hire a dog and it's me who's doing the barking, then there are two things. There is a problem either with the dog or the hirer. The dog either is not doing the job or the hirer is a problem. So here we're now talking about the hirer. There are steps we put into place to due diligence, whatever. But on top of all that, I've come to understand that, and I'm still learning it, how to harness my instincts. Someone can be checking all the boxes, but what is your instinct telling you? I've come to understand that I've got testimonies from very many prominent people. They have never gone wrong with their instincts.
But this is why, for example, I really urge people, this is why I mix my social media with what I do. LinkedIn is very key. So in LinkedIn, you build your connections, you build your network, but in LinkedIn, you also have recommendations and testimonials, but it's for real people. And LinkedIn will help you see, who do I know that you know? That can be an engineer, a plumber, whatever it is. But if I see that we both know Peter, I can actually call Peter. But it will show us the networking. But if it's just a muyaye, if it's just somebody that is not serious, he doesn't know anyone, he doesn't have a network, how serious is that? Facebook does not apply anymore, but LinkedIn is really key for that. It's a professional social network. So I really urge people, get on LinkedIn, be active, build your networks from both aspects of the end users and the professionals. And it's just one stage and one step to help. But also the contractors, have they been posting some of their projects? Have they posted pictures? Have then been given credit? Who is that project? Where is it based? So I can actually go and check. So this is how you build reputation in the year 2024 and above. With social media, with pictures, with videos, YouTube videos. But to start with, if I look for Peter and it's not even Googleable, is he shady? And it starts from there. But if you're on LinkedIn and you're on social media and you post pictures, oh, this is somebody good. And if people commented about his job and he's talking, he's not hiding, most probably will not even run with your money, because we also have those, not only they're not professional, sometimes you pay money,
And they never show up.
they don't even start a brick. They don't even do a nail in the wall. They just go with the money. So it's another level of not doing the job to the level. But so all of those things can be avoided if done right. There are lots of crooks, imposters, and so on all over the world. By the way, this is not only Uganda.
Definitely.
I watch on TV all sorts of shows of imposters. It's crazy. So this is not only applicable to Uganda. It's really everywhere.
Everywhere. So corruption is broad. The cases of corruption. Let me give you a small example of corruption. Especially for public works. Public works, it's a problem. There are articles everywhere. For Uganda, the president is trying to do a good job to get rid of the corrupt, but there is a headline which came in 2010. It was like, the president, he has been, let me look for that headline. It is a very interesting headline. It's this headline, it was in Monitor of 2010, March 13th. Graft Museveni's 24-year-old monkey. It's not easy. But in public works, it's a big problem. You can, most of the public works is done by the books. Consultant is there. But this corruption, I usually tie it to, I'm trying to get ways of separating corruption, impunity, and lawlessness in this country, and even other places. When you go to the US, they tell you never touch the Bidens. It's not above, it's not only here. Ogamba Nog is not only here. They will say never touch the Bidens, never touch the Clintons. So, for public works, it is becoming very, very difficult to enforce conformity to even the best tailored specifications. Why? Some of these contracts are more powerful than the consultant. For me, when I was starting doing construction and practicing professionally, I knew a consultant was the king on a project. That's what I came to. That's how I knew.
It's how it's supposed
That's
to
what I
be.
knew. A consultant is the king, is the key person because he's representing the employer. But the dynamics have changed. The contractor is more powerful than the employer's representative. There are some very
But there are two problems there. One, some consultants are not professional. And it also goes to incompetency.
yeah, but keeping other factors constant.
But yes, there are those good consultants, but they are not strong enough. So the constructor come and because you'll find some projects, the specifications were done spot on.
Good, yeah.
And then the contractor, for money issues, to chop off and to make more money and eat more money, reduced. We had a case, I'll not mention places, but in Rwanda, I was called, the sound was not good. And it's a national project. I was called, the president was coming to open the place. Sound was bad. I said, but how? This is first-class place, built by the Turkish. Very nice. I said, can I see the paperwork, the trial? Let us find it. I waited 2-3 hours. They dug. They brought me the papers. I tell them, but what is here? It's not what's here. What happened? Sorry, there was no money. We don't know. I said, I'm not a magician. I can't make magic. But if you didn't follow what was on the specs and you have put something completely different, I can't change anything tomorrow morning for the president. We also in East Africa, we don't have much equipment. You can't just tomorrow bring a whole new setup. And it's a big venue, national level. Or there was another scenario, another big project that even related to the president. So in the design, there were 3 stacks of speakers. But then the president people come and they say, no, usually the president talk from here. You cannot have speakers above the president. Remove. But you're not professional. You don't know. Okay, in the end, everyone, okay, you are the president, you're the client. Let's distribute the speakers. But this was not the design and not the acoustics, and don't expect to get in the end the same result as what was planned. So there are various things that always change here and there, and it's a problem. So back to the consultants. Consultants, unfortunately, and I support with you, need to be strong.
And the challenge is...
I think in Uganda, I know 2 consultants that are strong to insist.
Let me tell you what is happening. Not only here, everywhere. If you are a very ethical consultant, very ethical... I know there are very many here in this country, and I've worked with them. Very many. There are many. But we have 2 scenarios, as I've said. This is a new trend whereby contractors are very, very powerful. Let me tell you, they're even more powerful than the accounting officers of most agencies in this country. You find that an ED cannot fire a contractor. An ED who signs the contract on behalf of the government cannot fire a contractor.
Sad.
But if an ED cannot fire a contractor, what do you expect the engineer at the end of the tail? An engineer, just the guy who is saying, oh, change that culvert to that. What do you expect? If an ED cannot fire a contractor, or is fired and then reinstated later, it has happened in this country. Not once, not twice. And then someone said, no, maybe I was misguided. You reinstate that person. So that is what I call uncharted territory. It is very difficult. I don't know what to do with it.
But we are going back to education.
And now I'm talking public works.
No, but yes, even the ED, because he's not well educated to that technical level, they need to know that they are the bosses of the project.
Let me tell you the dynamics. Let me give you a small example. A guy comes with a paper. There's what we call pre-financing these days. He flies a paper and says, you just get a directive, give the job to so-and-so. Do you know how that guy got that job? They tell you, you supervise, you make sure he does a good job. is single sourced. They tell you, give the job to that guy. Can you have a question? Do you know the hurdles he has gone through to open those, say, State House or White House doors? This guy is too powerful. We don't know how they are connected, but nobody can stop them. Nobody can stop them. Just imagine you are given a letter to give someone a job, not to interview them, but to give them a job. And they tell you, make sure they deliver the best. They're doing the design, they're doing the construction. It's a problem. It's a problem. These people are very, very powerful people. Very, very powerful people. So what do? There are two options. You either play, I call it play, you play it like the VP. We had one of my most favorite VP in this country is called Mr. Sekandi. When he was handing off office to his, the lady who came into his office, Mr. Sekandi said, quote, I quote, they said, only do work you are told to do. Only do work you are told. That is the best VP I've ever seen in this country. And I admire him. He stayed in his line. If you deviate, you are gone. So what should these people do? The contractor is very powerful. They have options. You either quit if the guy is not is not conforming, but if you quit, two things happen. You have livelihood. Some people are like, how am I going to feed my family? Let me stay and I play VP. I call it I play VP. Let me stay, I play VP. My famous VP Sekandi, Honorable Sekandi. Do what you're told to do. You are quiet. The contractors are doing a mess. I have to feed my family. Number two, if you try to go hard, you're talking about strong consultants, my friend. You're protecting livelihood and lives. You're protecting livelihoods and life. These are very, very powerful people. You know what's happening with Boeing? Whistleblowers came out in Boeing. They are spilling all the safety non-conformances, all the safety-related non-conforming parts from the MAX jets. BBC has run an article that jets that have the minds of their own. People are being reported. All whistleblowers are dying. Everyone comes up against. These are very, very powerful institutions. You come against Boeing, and people are having mysterious death flying over hotels. That's what's happening in Russia. A certain opposition official jumped off a hotel. Things like that. Those allegations, anyway. But these are very, very powerful people. You can't cross their path. So the aspect of impunity and lawlessness as a hindrance to delivery of non-conforming works, it's something that is not very, very easy to deal with, especially for public works. But let me go on also, it also applies to public or private works. If this public official is the one erecting a condominium, as highlighted in this New Vision article, which building inspector is going to go there? I know very many cases where a building inspector has just told, never ever come closer to this chibati. Never ever come to this site again. There is a very, very recent story, There is a doctor in Seguku. We shall put it up later. There is a doctor in Seguku. This is very recent. A doctor in Seguku, his house was demolished by neighbors' boundary wall, retaining wall that collapsed. But this gentleman had approached every building control or regulating agency in the country up to NBRB. But still, he never got justice. I remember one time I was on a public project. I refuted some materials to be installed to be incorporated into permanent works. An Indian called me, that is an Indian contractor. He called me and told me, "Engineer, if you're not cooperative, I call the minister." Now you're talking about strong consultant. I'm proving to be a strong consultant, protecting the interests of the customer, but a contractor is telling me if I'm not cooperative, he's going to call the minister. I don't think I spent more than 45 days. I was fired. Strong consultants, as we call them, if you are lucky to ever get the job, they can frustrate you until you get out.
And this is, again, it's very sad.
Then another technique they use is when they see that you're not cooperative. Now, it is very difficult. We have also another scenario whereby the client representative, public works, client representative is conniving with the consultant. They tell the contractor, "You know what? Put in some extra stuff here, put some extra stuff here, put some extra stuff here." Now, we're talking about corruption.
Yes, and in the end, it adds up.
Put extra stuff here, put extra stuff here. So, if he's a compliant consultant, they will do it. But the one you said, a strong consultant, will refuse. Say, "No, for what? I can't pay for work that are not executed. If they do an audit that are certified works that do not exist, how am I going to defend my reputation?" So what they do, as you know, many times our contracts require extension of time. They don't extend your time. If you're contracted for 1 year, the moment it lapses, you have no contract. The contractor is extended, the consultant is not extended. And I've seen it here.
Not only here.
So it's very tricky. But for me, my general conclusion hasn't been, I'm saying I'm pro-fraternity. I want to emphasize this. I'm pro-fraternity. Yes, there are wrong elements, not only in engineering or construction, everywhere. But we just need to strengthen the customer. But public works is a problem. Public works is not easy. I've told you about impunity and lawlessness.
You know, there's another sector in between public and private.
Yeah,
Even house of worships.
Eh.
It's another disaster.
Eh?
Houses of worship. Too many consultants. Let me ask you, how many churches have good sound in Uganda?
I know Watoto because that's where
Yes,
I worship
Watoto
from.
is, I think, the only one, or maybe one of few, that have good sound. But the rest, the sound, for no good reason. Because of poor consultants, because of all sorts of reasons, and corruption. And I find it very sad that this is the state. And again, it's not only in Uganda, and it's not even Africa. It's all over the world. And things need to change. And in the end of the day, what we really urge out of this podcast today, of this episode, educate yourself, consult, ask questions. And if you're being asked questions, answer them. We don't ask questions just for intimidating you. We want to help. This is our job. This is what we study, and we study not in school. We study on the ground from experience. And if you feel, as you said, also instinct, from the questions you're asked, that the questions are not the right questions, or the answers you're getting from the person you're dealing with is not the right answers, then your instinct should tell you, this is not the right person.
Exactly. So you see, there is an aspect properly handled. That's an aspect of greed. I wanted to separate corruption and greed. Let me try to do it this way. Let me say greed, let me discuss greed especially on regards to private developers. You know, the term developer, the true definition from civil engineering dictionaries is a person who develops a property, it can be land or building, for a profit. A person or persons or a party that develops land or a property, it can be renovation, it can be what, but for a profit. that for profit and greed, they move together. So when you see a lot of people are screaming or crying that they bought condominium apartments and they're falling apart as soon as they enter in, these buildings are built for profit by greedy developers. If let me just give a very small.
By the way, just a disclaimer: we have no problem with people making profit.
We know.
The world is running about profit, but there is profit, and there is profit,
Greed.
and there is greed. Yes,
Greed.
the level of profit.
Exactly. So there is a common. Many times, I've found this very, very self-defeating. Very self-defeating. Recently, I was from a site with my employer, and he asked me, Peter, is it okay we pass by a friend's site? I was like, no problem, let us pass there. So we passed there. The guy was building up rent apartments. And he's like, no, I'm doing this myself, blah, 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 blah. I just bring these people, they do it for me. I got the approved drawings, blah, blah. So a friend my employer that I was with asked, why are you using these lousy materials? His answer was, I quote, these are for tenants. These houses are for tenants. I don't need to spend an arm and a leg to build things for tenants. So I interjected, I said, what do you mean they are for tenants? I said, now these guys are not good at handling property. So I have to do lousy stuff.
Just because of that, you must put quality because, and this is where I always say, what you pay is what you get. You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So even if you put rubbish tiles, and this is what people don't understand, the tiles will crack on day one. You're going to spend repairing.
So I told this guy, okay, it's true, yes, they're not good at handling property. But I thought you should be installing stuff that can withstand the maximum amount of abuse. Not the lousiest. And I was like, you don't know. Then I told him, but these are not tenants' houses. They are your houses. So now let me just bring this to condominiums for sale, not for rent. If a developer developing property with such a mindset, this is for renters, this is for rent. Just imagine someone selling. You are no longer owning this property. What kind of junk is he going to put there? Someone building his own houses for rent is using junk. Then what of the person that is developing for sale to release? It will be junk exponential N.
And in the long run, it's going to cost him 3-4 times more.
Exactly, and that's what they're highlighting in this article. So it's a big mess. So that's the greed on the aspect of greed, especially for private sector. Greed is so much for this private. And by all due respect, there are developers in this country that I know that are smart. In this very, very good developers. You can love this guy. I hate or love him. Sudhir Ruparelia he has a very good taste.
And he does class. He does not cut corners.
I'm telling you, you may love him, you may hate him, but Sudhir Ruparelia does good quality works. There are many, Madhavan Group. There are many, Mukwano. I'm talking about the developers that everyone can identify. Sudhir, Ruparelia.
Let's talk about Mukwano and Acacia Mall, for example, versus other malls in Uganda. You walk to a mall, the mall is still standing, the tiles are not off. Everything is the way it was opening 10 years ago.
So
now look at other malls that opened 2 years ago. The tiles are out, the walls are cracking, the windows, the sound system is not working.
Exactly.
So this is the difference.
So there are developers that have identified good people to work with. Then also National Housing does good products. For very, very many years, they've been leaders as a national company. So these are some of the people. There are other people, but these are the most prominent, and everyone can still identify. Mukwano, Sudhir. So greed, especially with these younger developers. I'm not meaning young like in age, but people are entering the business. It's all about profit. It's all about maximizing the best. It's all about getting the most money out of a project. They are squeezing everything out of the project. So it's a major problem for us. It's a big, big problem.
So I think to summarize this episode, we're going to have many episodes. We're going to talk about all sorts in the same line of business technically, as this podcast is a toolbox, and we're going to try and give tools and educate you guys. Some will be a short episode, some will be a long episode. So this is the end of this episode. Watch out, subscribe to watch other episodes. But to summarize, how will you conclude this podcast of ours?
My conclusion is like the general founding objective. Look for knowledge. A friend of mine told me that the cure of ignorance is inquiry.
Again?
The cure of ignorance is inquiry. Inquire.
Inquiry.
So, as you said, an educated consumer is an empowered consumer. We are in for what we call consumer protection. Consumer protection is what we are in for. And we believe that the uneducated consumer is an empowered consumer.
I agree. And guys, Google will not help you. AI will not help you. Talk to people. Talk to professionals. We're also here to consult. Feel free to leave us comments below or to engage with us on social media. And
They can also send any topic they want us to discuss.
Yes.
Anything. Technology, science.
and we shall do that over time. So for today, for this episode, thank you very much. And see you again.